I'm Sarah Nagle. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Verve.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest developments in AI and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize it.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we're going to help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey Chad, what's up? How's London? Why are you there?
So many questions. It's literally gray, rainy here. I'm here for one of our customer events on the future of beauty. So, been spending the last few days here and headed home
How's
tomorrow.
the jet lag?
It's good. I mean, I'm drinking coffee at 6 p.m. Is that good?
Kind of what you do.
It is what you do.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great.
I had a little bit of a different week this week. I went to jury duty, so not super exciting. I didn't get picked. I was kind of bummed. I wanted to participate, but I did not get picked.
So what did you do to get out of it?
Nothing. It just kind of was myself. I didn't dress weird. I just like...
Did you wear an AI powered by people t-shirt? And then they're like, I don't know about her.
No, and it was part of this thing called petite jury. Petite in my mind would be, small jury. Petite jury in New Hampshire apparently means you come back twice. So I was called in this week and then I have to come back a second time. So that's part of your jury service. So it's not like you get called in 3 to 5 years, they call me back. It's like, no, a couple months from now, it's like a twofer. Man. Not petite.
No, not small, the small jury.
No.
All right. It's all good.
So, well, I'm out. But, I'll let you know how it goes. I think in July is when I need to go back.
Okay. I think we can record from there.
For jury duty.
Yeah, it's going to be fine.
The guest will be pretty incredible that week.
Yeah.
Speaking of guests, coming up, we're going to be talking to Steve Lesnard, who is the former chief brand officer for both SEPHORA and North Face. And he was also the EVP of running at Nike. But first, let's talk about what we're seeing in the headlines. Meta will be labeling generative AI images on Instagram and Facebook, as well as WhatsApp. Right now, they're labeling the images created by Meta with imagined by AI. But Nick Clegg, who is part of their runs global affairs for Meta, wants also to be able to label content created by other companies. How do you think they're going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how quickly they're moving on this. I know we talked about it a few weeks ago from the World Economic Forum when he was on stage saying, and also from Mustafa Suleyman, I think, from DeepMind, talking about how the first kind of wave of this is to do detection on images and just kind of let people know what is real, what isn't. So it sounds like from what I'm seeing that they're doing much more of like a search and discover, like find the content, analyze it, and then label it, similar to what they're doing with text. But I'm curious if they will eventually do that at the upload time to then kind of scan it and then determine if it is real or fake, or also leave it in the hands of people to label it. Yeah.
It's going to be pretty interesting when you start to see how many things are altered or images that are altered with AI. Yeah. I don't know. I wonder what that will do. I wonder how that will change how people post. Will they want to post more real images because of that, or will they,
I would think so. I mean, you don't want to turn Facebook into iStock, so it's kind of what it would start to feel like, I would imagine.
Yeah. All right. Well, more to come there. This story that we found about generative AI could potentially change or sway what the elections that are happening in Indonesia. So next week, there is a general election on February 14th in Indonesia. There's a version of General Prabowo, I might be pronouncing this wrong, Subianto, who is the defense minister right now, and he's up for re-election. And they used generative AI. They used Midjourney to create images of him, and these images are all over Indonesia. And
they're great. Those images are great. You gotta love those.
He looks like cute, And it's like, it's creating these images of him where he is adorable. He's like creating these little like love signs with his fingers. He's
Yeah, the
holding up
cat.
his cute cat, his cat named Bobby. But what's really interesting about it is that Gen Z voters are loving it. And there's 205 million voters under 40 in Indonesia. So that could like really change this election. And it's the first of
Yeah.
its kind. So it could be really interesting for what happens globally.
Yeah, I mean, that's half of their total voters are under
Yeah.
the age of 40. So
Yeah.
uh, I know we were chatting about this before, but the word lovable very rarely comes up in elections.
Yeah.
And just the idea of generating some of these images to get, get that description across is just really interesting of how they're using this and like other tools to help improve their image, like
Yeah.
right or wrong, but like it is working.
Yeah. Well, 19 billion views on TikTok and,
Yeah.
you know, lots of shares, and people are really excited about getting out to vote, which I think is a really good thing. But it's also just really interesting if they're calling the person they're voting for lovable or adorable. Wonder what they're voting for. Are they voting
Yeah.
for this person for the right reasons?
Yeah. And as you mentioned, this will be a really unique glimpse into how Gen AI might be used in political campaigns, with Indonesia being the world's third largest democracy. So, with
Hmm.
our upcoming elections, are we going to see like a baby Joe start to emerge to like lessen some of the critical feedback? I guess people are saying you're too old to run.
Yeah.
I've just seen that be kind of the most, I guess, the adjective that's used the most right now
Uh huh.
in the election is that. And so
Yeah.
you've got someone who's using it to essentially look like the big boy character
Ab-
or mascot. And maybe they're going to hand out burgers when you vote. Who knows? But
Yeah. Baby Joe, digital twin. It will be,
it might happen. It might happen. But
might happen.
they're essentially laying out a roadmap to do it.
Hmm. All right. And then the last thing that made me giggle this week was the Apple Vision and Cybertruck video, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen,
Yeah.
but of the guy driving on a Cybertruck, but also with the Apple Vision goggles on, not paying attention to anything on the road, or yeah, who knows what he's doing in there. But it is like you've just been hearing a lot about Apple Vision, but just kind of the combination here is kind of is silly.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I
These
know
are,
you have some opinions about it.
yeah, I mean, it's just really tough to pull off something you put over top of your head. Where I know that there's strides being made to make it feel less obtrusive, but from wearing Quest and all those types of devices, I haven't seen anything yet to be able to do that. I am a little obsessed with. I just got the Ray-Ban Metas sunglasses, which kind of transition from like day to night, but like in a cool way, of course.
Like
Um,
transitions.
yeah, I'm just going old. I'm just going old. We're just gonna go for it. But they've been amazing because I put them on, listen to music, and can still be present in what I'm doing without feeling like I have headphones on or kind of blocking out the world. I'm like a big fan. I'm a little bit of a fanboy on these. I've been wearing them every day, and that's just kind of introducing a new behavior into my life. Not always easy. So
Yeah. And as a, as a researcher, that's a pretty interesting tool to be able to have, understand what's happening around you, collecting that information, and in kind of without having to hold up a camera,
yeah,
without, you could be like listening to different things. You could be, I don't know. I find that
no,
there's
I
a
mean
lot of possibilities there for
I
research.
wore them on the flight over, listen to podcasts. I wore them on the tube, trying to navigate like where the hotel was and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't have to look at my phone,
Hmm.
so I could essentially walk around like a local, just kind of being fed information, but still hear the sounds of the city. I think you
Hmm.
mentioned that the other, like on a few episodes ago, of just the whole idea of AI giving us not kind of multimodal, giving us not just kind of what's being said or what's being heard, it's all of your senses. And I think that's, for me, that's one of the most interesting products that is taking me there, at least making that feel like a reality.
You're making me want to try it.
Yeah, they're
And I
really
have to
good.
wear glasses. Can I put my prescription in the
Yeah,
lenses or in
you
the
can.
glasses? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And you can get the transition lenses, so you can join me in the team
The Cool
cool,
Kids Club
the
of
cool kids.
transitions.
Yeah, we're gonna like sit inside. It's gonna be fine, and then we walk outside, and then for like 10 seconds, you're in the like gray zone of like, is that man's shades like turning? And the answer is yes, they are.
Oh, that sounds like the new video intro for the podcast. Just two
Oh,
cool
it's gonna be
kids walking
amazing.
outside with transitions.
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's get to our interview with Steve Lesnard, who is the former Chief Brand Officer for both Sephora and North Face, CVP of Running for Nike. I'm excited to learn about how he thinks about the beauty industry and how AI will impact beauty, I mean, partially because we have clients with Verve that are in the beauty industry. So that's what I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to.
yeah, absolutely. And for those that may know, Sephora really, I'd say, like broke the barriers around democratizing beauty care, because and Steve will talk about this, but um, everything used to be held behind the counter, like in cases, and so bringing that out to the people, to allow everybody in the world to experiment, with what beauty means to them. So I'm really excited for him to talk about that, and also the loyalty program, which was, I'd say, one of the best in the world. So I would definitely stick around to hear more about that.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hold on. Let me put on my glasses. No, yeah, let's go.
Well, Steve, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And it seems like I'm the only person not calling in from a cool location. Chad is in the smallest hotel room ever in London, and you're in
Yes.
the south of
I'm in,
France.
I'm in the south of France right now. Yes.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
could be doing this in a pub somewhere. So
Yeah,
just saying.
exactly. That would be
Just
nice
saying.
too.
Next time. Next time. So, first, we'd love to hear a bit about your experience. So, most recently, you were the CMO at Sephora, and you've had other experiences at VF and Nike. We'd love to hear about what brought you to Sephora, and kind of what led up to that, and kind of what's happening now for you.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe, so I spent 21 years at Nike in various different roles in Europe, in the US, and in global, in product and merchandising leadership roles, then in marketing. I had the opportunity to lead the women's business, the running business, two Olympics for Nike. Also was the CMO of Europe for Nike for a while, which was a lot of fun during a big World Cup where Nike passed Adidas as the number one soccer brand. Um, and uh, and then I became a general manager for the running division. So running the full category, the Nike running division was, always at the forefront of innovation for Nike in terms of experiences, in terms of product, in terms of retail. So it was a really, really great place to be at. Then I had the opportunity to join the North Face. I've always loved the outdoor. And the North Face is probably one of the most iconic outdoor brand in the world. And I was my role over there was I was the head of all product creation, footwear, apparel, and equipment, and also their global chief marketing officer. And uh, and then a couple of years ago, over 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to actually go back to France, which I'd left to do an MBA and never to come back to join the LVMH group and one of their biggest houses, the Sephora, as their global chief brand officer, which is a new position created, also the president of their private label brand. And my connection, with Sephora started really early when we were building the women's business at Nike, and we were asking consumers, where do you like to shop? And Sephora, around the world was consistently ranking as one of the top destinations. So, we spent a lot of time studying, Sephora, the service, the presentation, their loyalty system, always really innovative brand, on that front. And so it was an incredible opportunity to actually join the Sephora team right at the end of the pandemic and help the team and this beautiful brand come out of the pandemic and go back to its DNA in order to get back to a growth and profitability roadmap.
Great.
And that's where I am right now. So I'm living in France. It's been almost 3 years. And the family, my wife is American. The kids grew up between France and the US, and they're little global citizens. So it's fun to give them that experience as well.
That is awesome. So, what's going on with Sephora right now?
So I actually decided to leave Sephora a couple of months ago, as you know the organization was evolving its direction, and I felt like it was time for me to actually look for a new challenge. So I'm actually in a fun transition right now, as I embark on a number of different projects, as I craft my next chapter.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll look forward
Go on,
to.
yeah, go on, Steve. Like what are some of those what are those some of those things that you're crafting?
Well,
Don't hide all the good details.
there's certain things I can tell you, others I cannot, but I've actually used this incredible opportunity that he's having more time to do some of the things that I love to do. So advising for smaller companies and friends who are super talented and having incredible ideas. I've joined a couple of boards and I'm advising an AI company actually as well, who's doing some really interesting thing in the space of artificial general intelligence, which gives me the opportunity to, continue to dig into some areas that I'm really interested and passionate about, at a time when, I have the opportunity to dedicate a little more time on these.
Curious about different definitions of innovation. So you've been at a number of companies, and every company has their own definition about of what innovation is. I'm curious to understand from the different organizations what how did they define innovation from Nike to the North Face to Sephora? Was it different?
It's interesting. I don't know that it would be different, but it would, definitely be expressed differently in the organization that I've had the opportunity to be a part of. What's interesting when I reflect on this is the companies that grounded their DNA on, being innovative, bringing new product, new service, new experiences to consumers, and really embedded that in their way of doing business, were at their best when they were actually on their game and truly innovating. And it's interesting living for 21 years at Nike, and you can see the ebbs and flows. Same with the North Face, because I know Sarah, you and I share that VF experience. It's really interesting to see, companies performing their best when they're, truly delivering on what they, on what their premises were, particularly when innovation was a key part of their DNA and their success. And when they're off their game, is typically reflected quite a bit in the business, whether it's because other competitors start taking the lead, or they miss a trend or an opportunity, or just a consumer expectation because they've been too internally focused as opposed to really thinking about how to surprise and delight consumer in different ways. So if you think about Nike, innovation DNA really started with this idea of product innovation for the very best athletes in the world. That was always at the core of Nike's DNA. But it really became, when Nike is at its best, it's when it really permeates through everything that Nike does. So it's not only for the elite athletes, but everyday athletes through the product creation side, but it's also innovative experiences, whether you think about event experiences or digital experiences. Had the opportunity to lead the creation of the Nike Plus running community, the very first, digital community. At the time, it was groundbreaking. When we partnered with Apple, it was a puck in a shoe with a nano, an iPod. That tells you how old I am. I was really young at the time, and then that led to the first digital, GPS powered app. But just to put some perspective, like at the time when we launched it, it was actually illegal to run a marathon with headphones. If you were running a marathon with music, you'd get disqualified. Yet we knew consumers really needed distraction because the average, finish race was around 4 hours and 45 minutes, you know? And so, it's a good example of innovation that completely build on behaviors, but also challenge the status quo of an industry, or sometimes, of how, an industry has been looking at, their consumers and how they use them. So to me, and it's same if you think about retail experiences. When you think about some of the big Nike towns that were created, they were meant to be theaters to celebrate sport at a time when you would typically buy sports equipment in sporting goods stores, and it was more of the FMCG big racks of products that where you would buy product as opposed to creating these theaters where you elevate product like luxury brands will do to showcase, how innovative and unique they were. At the North Face, the North Face started as an equipment company building backpack for women to allow women to actually hike further to
That's how
get
it
to
started?
to better, yeah, to
I
get to
didn't know that.
that's the first thing that the North Face founders did, is they created backpack, actually better, lighter backpack for women, to enable them to actually get to the crag and to the climbing walls, better. And of course, from then it led to a lot of incredible equipment, apparel, and now they of course do footwear as well. And this mission of athletes tested, expedition proven set a really high standard, to constantly push the boundaries of layering and garment design in order to enable athletes to stay longer in the harshest conditions when, their life was depending on the gear that they had. Because when you go on an expedition, if you have a gear failure, you can't go back to base camp and change, or to the lodge. It doesn't work that way. And so, and I think the North Face, over the years created these really iconic product for the mountains that left a legacy with outdoor athletes, but also with street consumers who actually appreciated the incredible light yet warm and protective product that you can definitely use if you live in cold places in a harsh condition. Think of New York, or the East Coast, in wintertime, where you can get freezing or temperature. Same, I lived in Colorado for 3 years, beautiful but cold as well. And then at Sephora, as you can tell, there's a thread for me because I love brands who really connected to innovation. The concept of Sephora was really groundbreaking at the time, because the founder, Mr. Mondonneau, his vision was to make the world of beauty more democratic. It was about letting everyone experience beauty on their own terms. At the time, you would buy, fragrance or skincare or makeup in department stores. It used to be behind glass counters. You couldn't touch it. And his vision was to explode all this, to present all the brands, in very colorful, playful way, enable consumers to come, touch, play, try, not buy necessarily, so that they could find the product that would work best for them, and also invite them to try different things. If you come for fragrance and you want to try makeup and maybe try new looks in makeup or skincare, Sephora was supposed to be your playground. And that innovation DNA led to completely new store design, store experiences, merchandising, product presentation, and also assortment, to always get the latest and greatest. And so when Sephora, is at its best, it's when it, really delivers on these, core principles as well. So it's been fun to actually be part of these organizations and help them lean on that innovative DNA while reinventing it with new tools, new consumer expectations, and new capabilities, right? Because as you told runners 25 years ago that, an elite runner would run, under a 2 hour marathon, people would have thought you were completely crazy. And yet, Kipchoge did it, and Nike really helped,
Hmm.
enable it. So it's been fun to see how fast things are evolving, and the pace of innovation is only accelerating these days.
So can I ask about how is AI revolutionizing the game? Because it must be, because that moves so quickly, and so curious about your experience at Sephora or maybe other brands about how AI is revolutionizing innovation.
I would say at this stage, I think it's starting to revolutionize, or maybe broadening the thinking, but at least from the perspective that I have, that might be still quite limited. AI is still very new in organizations, and organizations are still really trying to wrestle and understand, AI's, full capabilities. I always joked and often, say that AI often lands in the chief digital and chief marketing departments, because the chief digital, organization, are already quite connected with what the technology could be, and its natural language. And the marketing organization are often the first area where you can, test and try, particularly with consumer facing experiences. But it's at its infancy. We were discussing yesterday together, the idea of AI completely changing and revolutionizing search, because normally you ask Alexa, Siri, or whoever, for information recommendation. But in the future, you could actually, ask for true recommendation, fully integrated recommendation, right? Like that would connect, a very different, set of parameters and information into a recommendation and actions, connected to that recommendation. That's completely different from, how we search today. In the world of product creation innovation often is about, you know, reinventing or creating a new take on an existing idea or combining ideas to open your eyes on new possibilities. Well, often testing and learning and trial and error are a big part of, crafting something new and sometimes discovering and lending to something revolutionary. And I think AI tools will be able to really accelerate the ability for creators to test, to learn, and to even get inspired by new possibilities that they didn't think, possible. The challenge, I think I see for me a couple of interesting challenges. The first one would be data source. How do you make sure that the information that will feed your AI system are the right information, that they're relevant and that they're credible and authentic? And I know that's something that we've been thinking quite a bit in the companies that we're in before. Particularly if you have a lot of data, you don't want to share that data with others because it's your data, but you'd like to get all this data to make your data richer. So how do you work that one out, right? And I think the other part also when it comes to authenticity is making sure that it helps solve real problems for for your consumers, right? That's going to be really, I think, exciting to see what will be coming, and I think the conversation we will have a year from now is going to be very different from where it is today at the
Yeah.
pace at which things are evolving.
So can you I guess project? So when I've seen a few interviews you've done over the years, you've talked a lot about like consumer obsession, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just getting obsessed with kind of the needs and desires and the experience you want to have, and you can kind of see that in the things that you've created at these at these companies. Um, how would you imagine that unfolding in organizations today? Because it is in its infancy, but like, where would you put it? Is it kind of like a through line through like the consumer experience? Is it a part of the kind of the innovation, the innovator's toolbox? Or is it across everything? So just curious if you had to
Yeah.
like project that out.
Well, the way I like to think about it is, as you pointed out, I love to always start with the consumer, right? And services, whether they're product or physical or or digital services or experiences that would be at the service of consumers to add value to their lives, or so remove any frictions or frankly solve any problems that they might have. And when through that lens, what I think about AI is a great tool to supercharge what you're doing in a better way. I'll give you a few examples. If you think in the world of loyalty, right? Companies that I worked for, loyalty was really important because it's you have a large data base of consumers that engage and trust your brand, and you want to continue to keep them engaged in the brand. And Sephora was world class in having like a really strong loyalty program. The challenge with loyalty program is typically twofold. Number one is how do you garner all the data information that you have from different systems in your organization to create the right personal profile for your consumers, right? And this is where you can see how AI could actually really
Absolutely.
supercharge, all the relevant data set that would be collected on the consumers to actually offer relevant suggestion or services for that individual. The other thing that is interesting to me also is this idea of really accelerating recommendation, because when you know what someone likes and you can start creating lookalike, you can start anticipating what other product or other experiences they would be interested in, and that leads to the holy grail of personalization at scale, which I think AI would be a really critical tool to deliver on that objective. If you think about like simple query when you're on a site, you're on back in my sports days, during COVID, actually, I'll use that example. During COVID, when you were going on Google search and you were looking at where people were searching, there was a massive surge of, consumers, particularly in the US, looking information on how to build tents. Why? Because at the time, what we saw is consumers were buying tents for their kids in their backyards when they were all locked.
Yep.
And then it became like, okay, how do you mount a tent? Another one was, what do you need when you go hiking? Like the number one question in running back in the running days was, how do you start running? And what was interesting is no brands were actually answering these simple questions because brands were so focused on selling what they had to sell that they were not focused on, the real questions. And I think the ability to actually, like have a full overview on conversations that are happening, questions that are happening, answers that are being given to these questions through the communities, and then cipher through the best answers in order to provide and anticipate questions and needs is for someone who's consumer centric, it's really exciting because now you can actually really deliver on the right conversation and expectations at the right time at scale. So I look at AI first as a way to supercharge what companies have wanted to do in a much faster and comprehensive way. Then there is the other dimension of AI, which is grasping how far it could take us, how far it could actually push, from becoming a tool to actually becoming the thing that you would rely on completely on. And it's fun to think about it. Sometimes a little scary, to be honest. At this stage, I focus more on the AI as a power tool, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like the two parts of like the recommending and creating, I guess, have been always like switched. We would always create and then recommend, and so then
Correct.
you would search for the matchmaking was really important because you were doing that. But I would imagine in the future, if you take that example of like, I want to start to run, or you might start not with like, how do I start running as like your search, but your field is, I want to start to run, and then creating the journey for you, that you're a part of the experience.
Yeah.
I guess what might need to happen within organizations to enable that personalization or that creation, because you've got like such an experience of doing both, kind of the product creation side as well as getting like kind of a front row seat into like Sephora's kind of reinvention of putting the product out, that's kind of democratizing it, making it so you could touch and feel, and you were kind of creating what your view of beauty was in the store.
Well, I think the magic of Sephora for me has been the incredible choices that Sephora offered with exclusive and new offer that made it special to go to Sephora, but to really let the community actually take control of their experiences. And so if you think about AI powered tools to help find a consumer find the perfect match for the foundation that she's looking for based on her skin color, but maybe other attributes that she might be looking for. If you in that world, what's really interesting is AI would give you the ability to actually fetch other profiles, a lot more information that would be similar to, that would then lead to a much more educated recommendation. And I think to me that's the exciting part, which is like when you're a consumer centric obsessed individual, you always go on social media these days just to see what people are doing, to see how people are commenting, and these are real comments from real people saying this works for me for this or this reason. How do you do that at scale? That to me is is I think is going to be quite interesting, and I think it's going to move really fast. And you see companies doing it right now. I was in a conference a couple of months ago, and it was a grocery store in France, a big grocery store. Like think of it as a Safeway of France called Carrefour. That just for that that conference in 3 weeks they created this recommender, for recipes, that they did with AI. That was quite powerful already because they had a lot of data on, based on what's in your fridge. Describe what's in your fridge. We'll give you 15 recipes of what you can do right away. Oh, and by the way, we can order what's missing and have it delivered to you, within the hour because there's they have stores everywhere in the country, and it was just a live example that just showed you the potential of how AI will naturally help and supercharge existing behavior.
So there's a ton of potential within organizations for AI to like help with workflow or help with product development. I'm curious from your perspective, what's limiting organizations from jumping like head in, kind of, or like maybe that's the wrong way of asking, just jumping in the pool. Are there certain types of roles, or is there anxiety? I'm just kind of curious what you think is limiting kind of that all in mentality on AI.
In the companies that was part of the conversation that I have, I don't know that there is any hesitancy in investing in AI. It's more about understanding the most effective way to do it, and that's why, at least from my experience, it often sits within the CTO or the CMO, labs, because the CTO will look at all the technology stacks that they have and understand how some AI capabilities will help enhance some of the the system that they have. And then on the brand side, it's what could be consumer facing and that could immediately add value or create value to consumers. But I think it's just the beginning. At least in the organization that I was part of, the biggest challenge that I could see is that internal revolution already happening around harmonizing systems and data so that the data could flow from one department to another, and on top of these, like long roadmap that takes 2 to 3 years to align on the technology stack, and a date and wire, or, and connect all the pipelines. Now comes AI on top of this and understanding how that can be superimposed into it. I think it's more of the discussion that we've had. But another thing that is low hanging fruits that I've seen done in organization is helping improve productivity of teammates by reducing wasting time in system connections, and data entry and data processing that can be super time consuming, and that's a good way to actually improve productivity for all your teammates, which brings the positive side of AI versus the concern of,
Right.
will that replace, my job, potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were talking, the other day about, the role of like AI agents, and where do you think, like, where do AI agents fit in, fit into this? How do you see them like augmenting the organization? Those kinds of things, and yeah, just curious, like some of the work you've been doing the last few months, and kind of digging in a little bit deeper into that.
And I
Yeah.
guess also before you get in, can you explain to our audience what an AI agent is?
Then we have
Okay,
to
I'll give
kill
you.
you, Sarah.
Yeah, I'll give you my like a simple version of an agent, but it's basically a software that has the ability to be very focused on a task and be expert on that task, but has the ability to actually interact dynamically and evolve in and around the task. Right. So the simple way I would describe it, but Chad, this is where you have to jump in and probably correct
Yeah.
me, but I think of it as an expert in a field, in a very specific field. If you want to know something about how to make the best pancake, and the best recipes, it would be a software that would not only, farm the best recipes, but would stay up to date and updated on, the latest and greatest conversation in and around these recipes, right? So it's the ability to adapt. So so I'll pause there. Is that a fair way to describe an agent,
Yeah.
Chad, or?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to describe it, and I think there's obviously different types of of agents, but I think the better ones are the ones that have a feedback loop
Mm-hmm.
where it, not only goes through the tasks, but also gets feedback on, did I do this? Did I do this well? Did I make your pancake the way that you wanted it or not? And then can I learn from that and start to, and I think when you start to create a whole restaurant of all these different agents who are experts at these tasks and, orchestrate them, I think then you have something really interesting. And curious your take on that. And also, last week, I think we mentioned on the pod, with Sam Alton, kind of the bet around like, how soon are we going to get to see $1 billion company founded like just with one person behind the scenes and then using AI to, essentially multiply. It's like that movie with Multiplicity. Was it like with Michael Keaton, where there was like multiple Michael Keatons everywhere? And but yeah, I think it's just a really interesting premise of agents and kind of what the possibilities are for them.
Yeah, well, listen, from the conversation that I have, with the company that I'm advising on, what's really interesting is developing the right agent, to Chad's point, that can learn, adapt, and improve, um, can be really powerful because it can solve a small problem that sometimes can be a small problem for a lot of people, or it can solve a big problem for a lot of people. And so, like, for instance, if you're in the world of traveling and your travel got, delayed or canceled, and the ripple effect that it has on the rest of your travel schedule. Well, if something could actually help you reconnect and and change all of that, imagine, how quickly it would, spread, its use, everywhere, right? And so the idea of, like solving specific problem with a powerful agent, could lead to, billion-dollar companies, are created by one individual. What I find interesting is when you start thinking about, to your point, Chad, about multiple agents. Sometimes we're talking about hundreds, thousands of agents, all working together in a cohesive way towards a common goal. That's where you get into this idea of artificial intelligence or general artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence meaning, like you're very smart on a specific subject, but in order to be smart on that subject, you're going to have to know a number of different, tasks in and around that subject, right? So like if I use the world of makeup, for instance, okay, understanding all the different products that are happening, all the different trends and how they combine, in an effective way against different types of skins, different kind of environment, different kind of stages. You can imagine the number of, like experts, agents that you need to have working together, right? And then when they all, and the holy grail is when they all work really well together, then they provide you this fully comprehensive recommendation that to guide your decision making. I think to me that's the part that becomes really interesting. Now the interesting or maybe like a daunting part is when you do that at scale on all topics. Like,
Right.
and that's the general artificial intelligence holy grail that people have is. But what I think is going to be interesting today is companies are going to there's going to be companies that are going to be solving one specific problem so well that it's going to change consumer behavior on that problem. Then like think of education. Like how AI can actually really help people learn remotely, and the access that it will give to people, to learn, and teach themselves or complement the teaching that they get, remotely. I mean, that part is really, really exciting. Will that really replace, great, schools and teachers? I don't know, but at least it's gonna help people in a really powerful way. And so and then some of the challenge that I see is the ability for companies to focus, because when you develop so many agents, the possibilities are so big and so multiple that it can become a big distraction.
Yeah.
What I could solve this and this and this, and then I still believe of what is it that you want to be famous for with consumer. What are you trying to solve really well, and then build from that. So, but it's going to be really exciting to see,
Yeah.
what the next 12 months will bring.
So you've got a really unique kind of moment in time for yourself where you have, you spent the last couple months with tech startups focus on AI. But if I pose the question to you of if you kind of took everything that you know now, but also the company that you would create, um, what problem would you solve that is, you feel like you're uniquely equipped to solve, but also we now have kind of the skills and tools available to do it. Do you have like, what's your company
Oh,
that you would do?
well, listen, as I always obsess about friction in my life or in people's life that I would like to solve. So my issue is I have too many ideas right now as opposed to one. But I mean, think about it this way. I've got a 9-year-old, a 14-year-old, and 15-year-old. Like doing studying for school. I am nailing my 9-year-old. I'm really good with him. Man, my 15-year-old math, and I was a math major. I'm like, Jesus, like what happened to me? So,
It just
like
it's
in
practice.
and
Yeah,
around
yeah, yeah. It's practice.
but also they just teach
It's
you,
all the new math. It's yeah.
yeah, they just teach you differently. And I get to the result, but she doesn't like how I got to the result. And
No,
therefore
no.
I'm not
Yeah,
allowed to actually talk to her about math anymore because I don't get it, Dad. So education to me is really rich, and I love the fact that it's also, like there's a democratic side of it where you can access to so much. Travel, man. We spend so much time. Chad,
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
traveling right now. The friction, the constant frictions around travel are immense. So,
Yeah, and I don't.
to
I
me,
mean, I
this is
don't want to.
another area.
I don't even want to interact with their agent. Like that's the thing. Like I want to build my own agent. And
Yeah.
I think everybody would want to do that. So keep going. Sorry, travel.
Well, no, but I'll tell you, let's stop on this for a second. You know, what's interesting about all these conversations to me is it often goes back to authenticity,
Hmm.
and trust. Like when your reaction on agent is really interesting because you want to, to give your trust to a tool or
Yeah,
service that will not let you down, right? And I think
correct.
to me, like, uh, I think success will be for companies that obsess a subject so much that they will actually develop, and gain the trust of their users that they will then, share with others, right? But travel is another one. Transportation is another one for me that living in a city right now where I can take public transportation, and avoiding traffic in other areas and navigation. Uh, and then so I would stop there, but I could add medical. Like I am very talented at
This is
breaking a
gonna
lot
be
of
the
bones in my
longest
body.
podcast ever,
I
Steve. We're
know.
gonna cover
What is
like,
Steve
No,
up
but
to next?
think about, no, but not me, but think about the challenges that we have when you have to look for,
oh yeah,
the right prescription, the right guidance, the right doctors, like there's and how in the US how you navigate the insurance system.
oh yeah,
Talk
yep.
about a pain point there, right? So I think it's going to be really fun to see how people are going to tackle those, and frankly, I think it's going to challenge companies to actually raise their games to keep up with consumer demands.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, you've given us a whole lot. Like it sounds like it's going to be a mystery for you to unpack like
I
all
have
these
a few
different
ideas. I
ideas.
have a
Yeah,
few ideas,
yeah.
but
Just a few
we'll have
ideas.
we'll
I'm
have
sure
to
we'll meet up to
reconnect.
kind of talk about it. Talk about like yeah, synthesizing it down. I'm sure you plug them all into some AI to help you make some choices, or even combining different things together around that. But
Oh
that's
my God,
awesome.
you guys are freaking me out about the math. I have a 4-year old and I'm like, I went to design school. Like I can't even imagine what math
I'm
will look
struggling with
like.
first grade math of just like adding double digit numbers, and like
Adding it
she's like,
wrong.
yeah, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, the answer is
Math?
52. I
Yeah,
promise.
exactly. Exactly.
I promise.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, that's all the time we have. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was a great interview with Steve. Chad, what are some of your big takeaways?
I'm just excited to build AI agents. Steve talked a little bit how those could be used and some of the possibilities. Um, Building something for yourself that can also help you do more throughout your day, I think is really interesting. And then how do companies, brands, etc., like interface with your agent? So usually is that they have an agent, and then you as a person have to integrate with them. So, what about you?
Well, I'm excited about the agents. My mind goes wild on kind of like all the different things you can do if you have these agents to be able to help you in your with whatever you're doing. I just really liked how he was talking about, brands prioritizing consumer insights are the ones that kind of excel. So
Yeah.
I think that we definitely believe that, in the work that we do. And I think just hearing that with the brands that he's worked with, I think that was really cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really simple premise of just, when you're reinventing retail, how
Mm-hmm.
do you bring the product out to the people, and let them experience it, and what can they do with it? So,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a really simple idea that I think has obviously caught on. You can see it in Apple stores and all kinds of things. So
Oh yeah.
lots of
I
influence.
remember going into that Sephora store when I was younger, and I just like put all the makeup on and then go out while I was in New York, which I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't have told him, but it's what a lot of people did.
No, but I think that's why it's kind of celebrated,
Mm-hmm.
like they were providing a service or an experience without you necessarily even being a customer yet.
Yeah.
And I
But
think
he was
that's the
right. I
future.
went back and I was like, that was
Yeah.
really fun, and
Yeah.
you go back and you buy some stuff. So it definitely worked.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. The show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Verve. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next Tuesday.